Not knowing how to handle objections properly is costing you hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars over the course of your career. So I remember specifically being on an appointment and I was in a competitive situation. They said to me, hey, we're going to think about it. I didn't really have a good response. I walked out of there and I didn't get the listing agreement signed. From that day forward, I recognized that this is 100% a skill-based business. And this is one of those critical skills that you need to develop in order to sell property in high volume. And there is a framework, and I'm going to go over with you the very specific framework on how to handle objections. I'll also give you some handlers for some common objections, because this is really critical for you to have these handlers in your tool belt and this framework in order to build this foundation. So the framework is the following, and part of it is receive language to describe what it is that I'm doing. And it comes from a book called Amplify Your Influence by Rene Rodriguez. I've met Rene in person. I've spoke at events that he was speaking at. He's an awesome dude. You know, I was doing this without even realizing I was doing it. And he gave me language and a construct, right, to describe what it is that I was doing. And I'm going to add something to it, right? So whenever anybody objects, independent of what the objection is, the first thing we want to do is acknowledge, which is different than agreement, right? Acknowledging what somebody says sounds something like, yeah, I understand. Okay, I see where you're coming from. Yeah, and if I were you, I'd probably feel the same way. I see. That makes sense. So I'm acknowledging what they've said to me, but I'm not agreeing with them. And then what we want to do is we want to walk through this framework. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set the frame. Our brains are sense-making mechanisms. We're constantly and perpetually trying to make sense of reality. And narrative is a construct of reality. And our brain, whenever there's a gap, like in narrative, it fills it in with past experiences or other things that people have told us. And if I don't set the frame for somebody, then they'll set it themselves. They're like, hey, what's the professional fee? And you're like, it's 6%. Versus, hey, the professional fee is one of the tools that we use to market the property. So we'll go over the options that you have at your disposal because I want you to feel comfortable with the one you end up choosing. I promise you this, that certainly won't be a reason why we do your business. You know, I want us to both feel good about what we're doing. Otherwise, we won't do it. My question to you would be if we can come to an agreement in terms of professional fee, do you think there'd be any other reason why we couldn't get started today? I don't think so. Awesome. So then what we'll do is we'll go over some options that you have at your disposal because I want you to feel comfortable with the one we end up choosing. I can share with you prior to going over those options how the professional fee is in fact a tool that we use to market the property. Then, you know, you'll decide what you feel is best. Whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. If I don't go through acknowledging, setting the frame, giving them a message, and then the influence objective, which is the remainder of that framework, then they're going to fill it themselves, right? They'll be like, he's just a greedy real estate agent. Versus me setting that frame, the professional fee is in fact a tool that we use to market the property. So the framework again is first we acknowledge, different than agreement. I understand. I see where you're coming from. Those are all mechanisms of acknowledging and not necessarily agreeing. Then we're going to go to the frame, set the frame of the conversation. The next thing we're going to do is give the message. And then the fourth part of this, have an influence objective, getting them to a place of making a decision. So the first one that I wrote down that's a common objection that you're going to hear all the time is as you're prospecting and making calls, sellers are going to say to you, hey, I already have an agent. I can appreciate that. I acknowledge that I heard what they said. Yeah, I appreciate that. I know that ultimately, if the decision is to sell the property, that it's really a business decision about who can help you net the most and do it quickly and efficiently. That's the frame. So I oftentimes find, and I don't know if you're open to this, that it usually makes sense to get more than one opinion with regards to price, commission, and marketing, just to ensure that you're making the best choice prior to getting caught up in a multi-month contract that could cost you time and money. I'm wondering, do you think that could be helpful or useful in some way? I oftentimes find that prior to getting caught up in a multi-month contract that could cost time and money, it's not uncommon for homeowners like yourself to get more than one opinion with regards to price, commission, and marketing. I'm curious, do you think there would be any disadvantage to doing that? Or I don't know if you'd be open to that. Is that something that you're open to? And then hush, breathe, and listen and be quiet. So again, that's that framework where we're acknowledging, we're setting the frame, there's a message, and then we're doing the influence objective. Okay. Next one. What are you going to do to sell my house? That's a good question. And I appreciate you asking. Acknowledgement. Yeah. I know ultimately behind that question is you just want to make sure that we actually get it sold, right? Because I know ultimately for you personally, you're not really too concerned about the techniques or strategies that we use. More likely than not, you're just concerned with actually getting the result that you're after. Is that right? Yeah. So the good news is that we're going to be doing the exact same things that we've done to help X amount of families so far in the last 12 months or sell X amount of $1 million worth of real estate. So it's really not a question to me of whether or not I could or couldn't help you. What the real question is me just trying to figure out specifically what you're looking to accomplish and why, and coming up with a game plan to help you to get what you want in the time that you want. Does that make sense to you? And then we move on. Yeah. So I acknowledge, I set the frame, I give you the message. Influence objective. Next one, your commission's too high. And I already touched on that a little bit. Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. I know if you're like most homeowners that I meet with, and myself too, I want to make sure I'm getting the most value, right, for whatever it is that I'm paying for. And I'm also aware that in the absence of value, the only thing to compete on is price. Tell me this, right? Because the professional fee is one of the tools that we use to market the property. So what I'd like to do is to go over with you, specifically how that is and how that works out in the marketplace, that it is a tool. Then we can go over some options that you have at your disposal, because I want you to feel comfortable with the one we end up choosing. And whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. Okay, so in terms of the professional fee being a tool that we use to market the property, what's interesting is, let's say you were a buyer in today's marketplace and you wanted to buy a home that's within 5 miles of, let's say, where this home is. We go and we take a look and we see that there's 10 properties that are on the market that fit that criteria. And 7 of them are offering to compensate your buyer's agent, right, for bringing a buyer. And the other 3 are not offering to compensate the buyer's agent. So as a buyer who recognizes that if a seller's not willing to compensate your agent, you may have to come out of pocket, which properties do you think you would instruct the your agent, to show you first? Ones offering to compensate your agent, or ones that are not offering to compensate the agent? The ones offering to compensate the agent. That's exactly right. And why is that? Well, I don't have to come out of pocket. Okay, and don't you think most buyers feel pretty similar to you? I do. All right, well, just by you saying that demonstrates that you recognize that the professional fee is in fact a tool that we use to market the property. Now what I'd like to do is to go over the options that you have at your disposal. Whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. The professional fee for us to represent you on the listing side is X. And again, all commissions are negotiable, so whatever it is that you want to be earning on that side. So really what we're just talking about is what we're going to be offering out to another agent if they can find us a buyer that's ready, willing, and able to purchase. And we have a few options that are at our disposal. Okay. The first option is we don't offer out anything, right? And in doing so, as you just described to me, that very well could end up affecting showings. And let me ask you this: if we want to net the most and do it in the time frame that you want, which is in the next 120 days, which would mean we would have to be under contract in the next 45 to 60 days, because it usually takes another 45 to 60 days to close. Are we going to accomplish getting what we want in the time we want by limiting the exposure in some way, or by making sure that it's completely broad and open? And by not offering anything out, as you shared with me, which I agree with, that could limit the exposure. And that really, when we think about it in terms of what you want and the time you want, does that seem like that compensation strategy would serve you best? And they'd be like, well, I don't think so. And that leads us to the second option. This is where we offer out a portion of the compensation to another agent. Now, let's think about that, right? It's not that that's wrong. Let's think about the ramifications of that, right? Second and third level consequences. Let's say you were a buyer in today's marketplace, and there's 2 properties, and for all intents and purposes, they're pretty similar, right? You like them just the same, features and amenities wise, same school districts, things of that nature. One's offering to compensate your agent fully, and one's only offering partial compensation. Which property do you think you'd be more inclined to make an offer on first? If the home that you made an offer on was the one offering partial compensation, do you think you would reflect that in your offer? Don't you think most buyers feel pretty similar to you? Okay, so if the goal is to net the most and do it quickly and efficiently, that is something to consider, right, in terms of that strategy. And then that leaves us with a third strategy. This is what most homeowners decide to do, particularly when they want to get the home sold for top dollar and quickly and efficiently, is, we offer a percentage of the agreed upon purchase and sales price as compensation upfront. And in doing so, we broaden the exposure completely, and we increase the probability we can get you top dollar quickly and efficiently. So based on what you're looking to accomplish and why and the time frame you'd like to make this happen in, which one of those options do you think would serve you best? Okay, so again, we go from acknowledgement, then we do the frame, then we do the message, influence objective. So those are 3 that you're going to hear pretty regularly, right, while you're prospecting. Now, I've taught this to people all across the country. Heath is one of the guys I taught it to. Last year, he did 20 transactions, all probate. He was a part-time agent, full-time cop. Mark Ramey, he's one of the top agents in Orlando, regularly does 70 to 80 deals a year. 50% of his business is now probate after I taught it to him.